Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's news topic. You're tuning in because you want to understand the very latest shoke-up of the UK immigration system and, maybe more importantly, what it could mean for you personally.
Exactly. That's precisely our focus today. We're diving deep into the UK government's Restoring Control Over the Immigration System white paper. Came out in May 2025.
Right. And we've really sifted through the white paper itself, pored over the official government stats, and looked at related reports too. Our mission today, pretty simple but vital. Pull out the key changes that matter if you're hoping to study, work, or join family here in the UK, or maybe you're already here. We're basically here to cut through the noise, the complexity, and just give you the clarity you need. Okay, let's get into it. Students first.
Absolutely. Let's start there. The white paper sends a pretty clear message. The UK still welcomes genuine international students. That contribution is definitely recognized. But, and this is the key thing, the emphasis now is really firmly on raising standards right across the board and preventing any misuse of the student visa system.
Right. Raising standards. And a big
Yeah.
part of that is how universities are being monitored, isn't it? Can you break down this basic compliance assessment, the BCA? What's actually changing?
Sure. The BCA, it's essentially the government's yardstick,
Hmm.
making sure universities are doing their job as visa sponsors. Currently, it looks at three main things. Their visa refusal rate needs to be below 10%, course enrollment, that needs to be 90% or more, and course completion, that's going to be at least 85%. Now, the really significant bit for universities and maybe for your choices as a student is the plan to hike these minimums by 5 percentage points, all of them.
Okay, 5 points. So what does that mean in, real numbers?
It means universities will have to show course enrollment of at least 95% and course completion hitting at least 90%. That's quite a jump. This increased pressure, it could definitely make institutions, a bit more selective, might affect how you apply, where you apply.
Definitely raises the stakes for the unis. And there's a new way they'll be sort of graded on this, a new system.
Yes, exactly. A new red, amber, green banding system for BCA performance, that's coming in. It'll make it much easier to see, just at a glance, how well each sponsor is doing with the rules. More transparency. Could help you, as a student, make more informed choices.
Okay, clearer performance bands. So what happens if a university starts, slipping? Doesn't meet these higher standards?
Well, the white paper outlines specific steps, interventions for sponsors who are close to failing on their BCA. Initially, they might have to put together a detailed action plan, address where they're falling short. More significantly, though, they could face actual limits on how many new international students they can recruit while that plan is active. So potentially fewer places at some unis if they're struggling.
Real consequences then. What about the recruitment agents universities often use? I know some listeners wonder about those.
Good point. The white paper brings in a mandatory rule here. All sponsoring institutions using recruitment agents for international students, they must join the agent quality framework. The aim is to make sure agents are, operating ethically, giving accurate info. It's an extra layer of oversight, really, designed to protect you from dodgy operators.
Sounds like a much closer look at the whole recruitment pipeline. And it seems they're also thinking about the wider impact on local areas.
Yes, that's explicitly mentioned. Sponsoring institutions will need to show they've actually considered the potential local impacts, like housing, local services, when they decide their international student numbers. It suggests a more, maybe, holistic view, looking beyond just the money for the unis themselves.
Okay, let's switch gears slightly. The short-term study route, especially for English language courses. We heard about some pretty high refusal rates there. What's the latest?
Right, the short-term student route. That's for people over 16 wanting to do an English course between 6 and 11 months. It's unsponsored, just for language study. What really jumped out was the visa refusal rate in 2024, around 48%, nearly half. That shows a very, very strict approach to these applications.
Wow, almost half refused. That is high. What's the thinking behind that?
The government's view basically is that too many applicants aren't genuinely coming just to study English. They suspect it's being used as a way into the UK, maybe to then claim asylum. So that's led to much tighter scrutiny of applications. And the white paper suggests that's not going to change. If anything, it might get stricter.
And the places offering these courses, the language schools, they're under the microscope too.
Yes, definitely. The white paper talks about an ongoing review of the accreditation bodies, the ones who approve these institutions. The goal is to make sure their accreditation is robust, identify any extra checks needed, both when places first get accredited and when they renew, trying to stop misuse of the route.
So, tightening up at both ends, applicant and provider for short-term English study. Got it. Now, a big one for many students post-degree, the graduate route. What's happening there?
Ah, yes, the graduate route. Currently, it lets eligible graduates stay for 2 years after their degree 3 if you did a PhD to work or look for work. The key change announced, a reduction, down to a flat 18 months for everyone. Doesn't matter if it's a bachelor's, master's, or PhD, just 18 months.
18 months. That's quite a chop from 2 or even 3 years. Less time to find that job and get experience.
Exactly. It significantly shortens that post-study work window.
Any other potential changes around the graduate route students should maybe keep an eye on?
Well, the white paper also says the government is going to explore introducing a levy, basically a charge on the income universities get from international students. The idea is to reinvest that money back into the higher education and skills system. But the specifics, how much, how it works, we're waiting for the autumn budget for those details.
Okay. So, lots of shifts affecting students, really from start to finish. Let's turn now to people looking to come or stay here as workers. What's the big picture look like for them?
The white paper signals a very strategic shift here. It's back towards prioritizing higher skilled migration. We're talking jobs needing qualifications at RQF level 6 and above, so generally degree level roles. And at the same time, much tighter controls, more limits on routes for lower skilled jobs.
Okay, higher skills and focus. Let's get into the specifics of the main skilled worker visa itself. What are the key things people absolutely need to know?
Okay, first, as I mentioned, the skill threshold goes back up to RQF level 6. Remember, it had been lowered to RQF 3, which is like A-level standards, so this is a big reversal. Second, the white paper clearly states salary thresholds will increase. It doesn't give the exact new figures in this document, but, expect a higher financial bar. You'll need to earn more. And finally, this move back to RQF 6. It's estimated that around 180 occupations that were eligible before won't be anymore. If your job isn't one of those, this could directly block your application.
180 occupations potentially off the list. That's huge. What about sectors with shortages, maybe in jobs below that RQF6 level? Is there any route for them?
Yes, but it's going to be much tougher. For jobs below RQF6, the white paper outlines a new approach. A very narrow, strictly time-limited, temporary shortage list. Getting onto the points-based system for these roles, only possible if the specific job is actually on that list when you apply.
And getting onto that list sounds like it won't be easy. What are the criteria?
Pretty stringent conditions, yeah. First, you need solid evidence of long-term, real shortages for that job. Second, the Independent Migration Advisory Committee, the MSC, has to advise that putting it on the list is justified. Crucially, there also needs to be a proper workforce strategy for that sector, showing how they'll reduce reliance on overseas workers over time. And employers wanting to recruit, they'll have to show they're really trying to hire from the UK workforce first. It's not meant as a permanent fix at all.
Right. Very targeted, very temporary by the sound of it. Now, a sector that's been in the headlines a lot regarding overseas workers, adult social care. What's the plan for visas there?
This is a massive policy change. The white paper announces the closure of the social care visa route to new overseas applications. Full stop. The government cited concerns about potential abuse and worker exploitation in the sector as reasons. It will have a huge impact on future recruitment, obviously.
Closing it to new applicants. Wow.
Yeah.
What about people already here on those visas? What happens to them?
There's a transition period planned until 2028. During that time, if you're already in the UK with a social care visa, you can still apply for extensions and switch to other routes if you're eligible, all from within the UK. But the white paper is clear. This transition period itself will be kept under constant review, so no long-term guarantee even there.
Okay, so figuring out new routes, but a window for those already in the system. Another cost for employers is the immigration skills charge. Any changes there?
Yes, a planned 32% increase to the immigration skills charge. The government says this is just catching up with inflation. It's the first rise since it came in back in 2017. But still, it definitely adds to the cost for employers wanting to sponsor skilled workers.
Seems the trend for general skilled work is higher skills, higher costs. But the paper also talks about attracting top global talent, doesn't it? What's the plan there?
Absolutely. While tightening some areas, they do want to make it easier for, exceptionally skilled people. Plans include increasing the numbers allowed on existing high talent routes, developing faster visa processes for people in key strategic industries. AI is mentioned specifically.
That sounds positive for those at the very top of their game. Any specific visas being made simpler or more attractive?
Yes, a few things. The global talent visa process for science and design roles is being streamlined, made easier to navigate. There's a review of the Innovator Founder Visa, too, looking at how to better help entrepreneurs coming out of UK universities set up businesses here. Also, they're doubling the number of overseas business workers an existing foreign company can send to set up a UK branch. And finally, a proposal for maybe expanding the high potential individual route, potentially with a cap, to include graduates from more top global universities.
So a clear push to get the brightest and best in key areas. One more point on workers. What about refugees who might have skills the UK needs?
Interesting point. The white paper says the government is exploring reforms, looking at allowing a sort of limited pool of UNHCR recognized refugees and displaced people currently living overseas to apply for jobs via the existing skilled worker routes. If they have the right skills and qualifications, of course, it would build on things like the displaced talent initiatives they've already tried.
That could be quite significant. A potential pathway for a very vulnerable group. Okay, let's shift now to family. People looking to come here or stay based on family ties. What are the key changes affecting family sponsors?
The main goal here seems to be creating a fairer, more controlled system, one governed by clearer rules set out by Parliament. The idea is to move away from a situation where policy has sometimes evolved through, well, court cases, especially around Article 8 of the Human Rights Act, the right to private and family life.
Okay, clearer rules from Parliament. What are the main elements of this new family policy?
It's designed to cover everyone living here legally, British citizens, settled people, workers, refugees who want to bring family members over. It will include specific requirements about the relationship being genuine and subsisting, reinforced measures against forced marriage, and importantly, continued protections for victims of domestic abuse.
Those safeguards sound vital. What about English language skills for family members coming over?
This is a really key change. The new policy will introduce an English language requirement for people coming as family members. They'll need to show an appropriate level. Now, currently, adult dependents on many work and student routes, no English requirement. And for settlement, it's usually B1 level. The paper hints the settlement level might go up to B2. And introducing any English requirement for adult dependents on other routes would be a massive change for many families planning to come here.
Yeah, that could have a huge impact. What about the money side, the financial requirements for sponsoring family?
The white paper mentions a review and likely extension of financial requirements other dependent routes, not just partners. The goal is making sure the whole family unit can support itself, won't need public funds. This builds on the recent increase to the minimum income requirement, the MIR, for partners.
Right, the MIR. Can you just remind us what that is currently for partners?
Yes, it went up to £29,000 in 2024. And the white paper itself notes this hike has already led to fewer partner visas being granted. It's a substantial financial hurdle.
Definitely. And lastly, on family, what about cases that don't quite fit the standard rules? Exceptional circumstances.
The plan is to set up a clear framework approved by Parliament for handling those cases outside the normal rules. It'll try to balance individual compelling circumstances against the UK's wider economic and social interests. But the aim is also to limit claims that seem designed just to bypass the rules or delay someone being removed. Oh, and importantly, it does reaffirm the commitment to UK Armed Forces members and their families' rights.
Okay, a more structured approach then for both standard and complex family cases. Let's move now to integration and cohesion, crucial for making immigration work right. What's changing here?
A central theme in the white paper is English language, seen as absolutely key for integrating successfully into UK life. Now, main visa applicants often already need English like B1 for skilled worker. But, as we touched on, there's currently no requirement for adult dependents on many work and student visas.
And the numbers involved are quite large, aren't they?
They really are. In the year to December 2024, over 190,000 entry visas were given to dependents, and the white paper highlights that just over half, 51%, of all dependent visas in that period went to people from countries with overall low English proficiency, according to the EF English Proficiency Index for 2024. Which, does raise questions about potential integration challenges.
That certainly paints a picture. So what specific changes to English language requirements are being proposed to address this?
Well, they plan new requirements for visa extensions. You'll need to show you've progressed in English, reaching at least A2 level, that's basic user. And for settlement, indefinite leave to remain, the bar is going up. To B2 level independent user for most routes, that's a step up from the current B1 standard for settlement.
So a clear expectation to keep improving your English if you plan to stay long term. Okay. Another cornerstone of staying long-term is settlement, ILR. What's happening with what the paper calls earned settlement?
The big message is settlement is a privilege, not an automatic right. And the most significant change proposed, increasing the standard time you need to qualify. It's going up to 10 years of continuous lawful residence in the UK.
10 years. That's double the current 5 years for many common routes. Are there any exceptions? Shorter paths still available?
Yes, some. The shorter 5-year route will still exist specifically for non-UK dependents of British citizens, as long as they've complied with your visa conditions. And safeguards for vulnerable people, like victims of domestic violence, those will remain in place.
In the earned part of earned settlement, how does that work under these plans?
The idea is to expand the points-based system. Use it to allow people to potentially shorten that 10-year qualifying period. Based on what? Based on their demonstrated contributions to the UK economy and society. But the details of how this point system will work, what counts as a contribution, that's going to be decided after a public consultation later this year.
So maybe a faster track to settlement if you make significant contributions. Any more immediate near-term changes to settlement rules?
Yes, a couple of things soon. A new specific settlement route for bereaved parents. If you're here as a parent of a British or settled child and tragically lose that child, you'll be able to apply for immediate settlement. And also, measures to support young people, those who've lived here a long time, turn 18, and find they don't actually have legal status. Support to regularize their situation and get on a path to settlement, especially clear pathways for kids who've been in the care system.
Those sound like important, humane changes for very difficult situations.
So,
Okay, finally, let's talk about earned citizenship. Becoming a British citizen. How does that fit into these reforms?
again, the starting principle is citizenship is a privilege. And the citizenship reforms will basically mirror the changes to earned settlement. So expect the standard qualifying period before you can apply for citizenship to increase. And like settlement, the plan is to expand the points-based system, potentially allowing people with greater contributions to qualify sooner. They also mention refreshing the Life in the UK test, everyone has to pass that, and looking at ways to reduce the financial hurdles for young adults who have grown up here but face costs getting citizenship.
Right, so consistent pattern.
Hmm.
Longer standard waits, but potential rewards for contribution for both settlement and citizenship. Phew. Okay, that was a lot of detail. To try and pull it all together, what's the key takeaway for everyone listening today?
I think the main message is that the UK immigration system is really going through a period of very significant, very wide-ranging change. The government's objectives seem clear: reduce overall net migration numbers, shift the focus towards higher-skilled individuals, and put in place much tighter controls, stricter requirements across pretty much all the main routes.
And as we've discussed, a lot of these changes are going to directly affect you. Whether you're thinking of coming here to study or work, if you're already here on a visa, or maybe you're hoping to bring family over, eligibility rules, the qualifications you need, the money you have to show, the time it takes to settle or become a citizen, it's all being significantly reshaped.
So it's absolutely crucial, really, that you stay informed. Keep up to date with these evolving rules and think carefully about how they might impact your own situation, your own plans for the future.
Absolutely. And maybe on that note, here's a final thought for you to mull over. As these major reforms try to reshape the UK's whole approach to global talent and migration, what will the long-term balance actually look like? Where will the balance fall between this stated aim of controlling borders and the undeniable economic, social, and cultural benefits that come from people choosing to build their lives here in the UK? Something to think about. Thank you for joining us for this deep dive.